Hi students, this section is solving linear systems by substitution. So in the last section, there was steps that you needed to follow to find the solution when graphing linear systems of equations. Here we're going to be working with steps solving linear systems by working with what we call substitution. So the first step is we are going to solve one of the equations for one of its variables. So you're going to have two equations. You're going to take one of the equations and solve for its variable. Then what you're going to do is you're going to substitute, meaning replacing the expression from step 1 into the other equation and solve for the other variable. Then you're going to substitute the value from step 2 into the revised equation from step 1 and solve. And then we'll find our values and check the solution in each of the original equations. So without seeing this before, it might be a little confusing, but the next few slides, as you know, I'm going to show you some examples here. So this clarifies what you need to do to solve working with substitution. So here we have our first example. You are going to see questions in this section that says solve for the linear system. Here we're not working with x and y, we're working with different variables, s and t, but it means the same thing. So my first equation is s equals t plus 4. The second equation is 2t plus s equals 19. Notice my first equation here has s equals. So s is all by itself, so what that means is I am going to take this s equals t plus 4 and substitute it into this equation. So I'm going to take, if s equals this t plus 4, what I'm going to write here is 2t plus s. Well, if s is this t plus 4, I'm going to substitute in that t plus 4 equals 19. So I substituted this in right here. So 2t plus t plus 4, well, if we have here, if I have a 2t and a t, they're the same variable. So I can combine these like terms, and what I get here is a 3t. Plus that number 4 that stands alone, so I'll just write the plus 4 equals 19. I need to solve for t here, so I'm going to solve equations. I'll subtract 4 to both sides first, and I'll get 3t equals 19 minus 4 is going to give me 15. Divide 3 to both sides to get t by itself, and I'm going to get t equals 15 divided by 3 is 5. So what I've done now is I have solved for t. So what I can do now is I need to now find the value of s. So I can substitute 5 in for t into the first or second equation, it doesn't matter. I'm going to choose the first equation because the numbers are just a little bit quicker to work with. So if t is 5, we got to solve for s. So s equals, we have t plus 4. Well, now t is 5, so it's going to be 5 plus 4. 5 plus 4 will give me 9. So s equals 9. So what I've done now is I've solved for the variable. T equals the value 5. S is the value of 9. So I can check to make sure that's right by substituting that in. So if I substitute, if I have s equals t plus 4, I can substitute the values for s and t into this to make sure it's true. So does 5 plus 4 give me 9? It sure does, so that works. We can double check the second equation where we have 2t plus s equals 19, where we substitute 2 times 5 plus 9. That's 10 plus 9. Does that give me 19? It does. So these are the correct values for the variables s and t. Let's look at another example here. We're thinking of the same idea, but this one's a little bit more involved than the last one. So step 1, what we're needing to do is we're needing to choose one of these two equations and solve for the variable. Since we have y by itself for the first and second equations, I'm going to solve for y, but notice the second equation has a negative y. I'm going to solve working with the first equation, solving for y. So if I have 3x plus y equals 5. I am going to solve for y here by subtracting 3x to both sides. So I have here y equals, I'm going to write it in the mx plus b form just because that's what I'm used to working with, negative 3x plus 5. That's what y equals for the first equation. So now if I got y by itself, I look at my second equation. I'm going to look at my equation for 2x minus y equals 10. And since I solve for my first equation, I'm going to substitute this in for my y. So watch what we have here. I'm going to write it over here to the right. We have 2x, keep that the same, substituting this negative 3x plus 5 in for the y. So minus, and I'll put in parentheses here, a negative 3x because you'll see what's going to happen here. Plus 5, that's going to all equal 10. Notice I have the negative in front of what I've grouped here, my parentheses. I'm going to distribute that negative to each situation in the parentheses. So what I'm going to do here, when I distribute that, I am going to look at this and bring down that 2x. Double negatives become a positive, so that's going to become a plus 3x. A negative times a positive, that's a negative, so that's going to be a minus 5, and that equals 10. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to combine my like terms. 2x plus 3x gives me 5x minus 5 equals 10. I'm solving for x here, so I'm going to add 5 to both sides, and I get 5x equals 15. I'm going to divide 5 to both sides, and I get x equals 3. So I've solved for x. Now that I've solved for x, I need to solve and find my y. So in order to do that, I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to choose one of the two equations. It doesn't matter which one. And I'm going to solve for y. I'm going to choose again the first equation, just because we're working with a positive y versus a negative, so it makes it a little easier. And so let's solve this. We have 3 times 3 plus y equals 5. 3 times 3 is 9 plus y equals 5. I'm going to subtract 9 to both sides, and I'm going to get y equals negative 4. So I've solved. X equals 3, y equals negative 4. I can choose one of these two equations to make sure this is true, because if I plug in x, 3 for x, and negative 4 for y, I should get 5 or 10, depending on which equation I choose. So let's work with the first equation. That's what we've been working with. So we have 3 times x is 3, plus my y is negative 4. Does that give me 5? Well, does 9 plus a negative 4 give me 5? It does. So that works itself out. These are true scenarios for this. So sometimes it wants you to write an ordered pair. So my answer here would be 3, negative 4 for my x and y. And that would be my answer.